Hello, this is Mark Tucker.
And I'm Alan Furstenberg. Welcome to Two Voice Devs.
Hey, Two Voice Devs, everybody.
How's it been going, Mark? How's your week?
Oh, it's been going just fine. Busy. I'm kind of in this rush of I'm trying to get my next voice game out in time for Christmas, and
Ooh.
It's called Snatch Word.
A name! We have a name! Snatch Word. I'm looking forward to this. This sounds interesting.
Yeah, so it's man, I've just been working really hard. I've been doing a number of different things. Like this last week, I set it up so it was doing a serverless project to deploy the code to Lambda. Reason why I did that is I want to set it up so that I could have, using the same code base, have 3 different deploys of my Lambda, one for Alexa, one for Google, and one for Bixby. And there's different assets. So for example, they all are going to use the same, DynamoDB database table, but in order to use Alexa, I use the Alexa Skills Kit, connector as the trigger that goes into the Lambda. For the other 2, I'm using an API gateway.
Yep.
And there's IAM rules that get set up with that. So there's just a number of different things that go along with that. And behind the scenes, serverless uses CloudFormation templates, which is part of what AWS, how you can program that. But I just kept having this problem with serverless, just the way that the Java project structure is, with the source code actually under a source directory, but the packages folder is out at the root. Just trying to set up things with serverless. I had this thing where I kept deploying 180 megabytes of data, and it turns out that I had stuff that was in my dev dependencies that was generating some pings from SVGs, and it was using a headless Chrome browser. So all that stuff was getting packaged up and deployed with my voice app. It was just part of how I had things set up with serverless, and that was kind of a pain. But I found something. I found a solution. So Jovo has this ability to run this bundle script, which basically copies just the files it needs to upload. So like the 18 megabytes that it needs over to a separate folder. Well, it's 18 megabytes with the node modules, but then it just runs in that folder, an npm install just the production things, and then it creates a bundle zip file. Which is very much more manageable. And it turns out that I found out that in my serverless file, I could specify that I want to use a specific artifact that's already been created outside of what serverless does. And that was it. So now it just takes that single bundle file, uploads it once to the cloud, in S3, which is then where it deploys it out to the Lambdas. And then it pushes 3 different instances of Lambda functions, one for each, each suffixed with the platform name, and it works. And it's like, it's 18 megabytes, and I'm like, finally. But I've been banging my head across that. There was a number of different people that were trying to help me, creators of different serverless plugins that were trying to help me figure out what the right solution was, and I just kind of stumbled across that this weekend. So that's one of the things that I've been doing to try to get Snatch Word out. But then I'm up now with this other issue, which maybe you can help me with, Alan.
Okay, so, we'll give this a shot.
So I started this project a number of months ago, put it on hold to do a whole other project, which was the home number that's, that you can, it's an Alexa skill. So now I'm kind of getting back to it, trying to get this finished. But at the time, the way that I did the Google Action implementation was via Dialogflow. So that was what available with Jovo at the time. And what you do is you bundle up all the intents and types into a zip file, and you can load that into Dialogflow, and then you point the webhook of the Google Action to your deployed Lambda function, and everything was working fine. And I have something that's out as an alpha release that I'm using during my testing. But now I'm trying to make the decision is, do I go ahead and bite the bullet and move to Actions Builder, or do I just keep things as Dialogflow? And so
it's always a good question. The Dialogflows, well, so here's kind of the trade-offs that I see.
Yeah.
The Dialogflow support isn't going away, but it's also not getting anything new.
Right.
So if you're expecting to take advantage of new features that come along, they're not going to be available in the Dialogflow version. So I tend to encourage people to move to Actions Builder unless you're trying to take advantage of a feature that isn't yet available in Actions Builder, because there are a couple. Some of them are very frustrating to me because I've got actions that I can't move over yet until the feature gets made available. Mm-hmm. But in general, I'm doing all my new work in Actions Builder, and I've been gearing up to move my existing big projects, including Voodoo Drive, over to Actions Builder. Actions Builder, I think, provides a lot of good features for developers in general. How much it provides Jovo, I'll be honest, I don't know. I leave the Jovo questions to you. But one of the things that kind of encourages me is that Jovo's notion of state management in some ways very much dovetails with the features that you can get with Actions Builder. So
with
scenes, yeah. Actions Builder has this notion of scenes. And inside a scene, you specify which intents can be activated. And you and I have had this conversation dozens of times now about how nice it would be to have just certain intents be active within a scene, at any given time. And scenes are the way that Google is doing that on the action side.
Yeah, so I looked at it because I know that Jovo has recently announced back in, I think, October that that they have support for Actions Builder, and so I found a tutorial about how to create an action in Jovo from the beginning using Actions Builder and that new integration. But I didn't find anything about how do I migrate an existing one. So I did see that there was a migration tool online, so I could, into a separate project, migrate my app from Dialogflow. And so part of that process I had to look up because it was calling things Dialogflow ES and Dialogflow something CX.
So
that I didn't have to worry about that before. It was just Dialogflow.
Right. So the other thing that happened is that Dialogflow has also now created two versions. The traditional version that we've been used to is called Dialogflow ES, or Dialogflow Essentials. Essentials. The new version of Dialogflow is actually kind of interesting. It has this notion of pages, and your intents are attached to a specific page. And you can set transitions from one page to another page based on which intents get triggered or other different needs. And if your face looks like this sounds really familiar, like, isn't this Actions Builder?
You read my mind.
Yeah, well, there are striking similarities between the two. Let's leave it at that. But it's pretty clear that Dialogflow CX is not Actions Builder. There are a number of differences between the two, which in some ways are, I get too much into the weeds to describe. It's things like Actions Builder allows for a maximum of 3 no-match intents, while CX allows for 6. Why the two? I'm not entirely sure. The other major difference.
Okay, keep going.
The other major difference is that Dialogflow CX does not come with any integrations. So if you want to integrate with another service like Facebook Messenger or Actions on Google, you need to write that integration yourself. And kind of related to that is the billing. Actions Builder is free for developers. Dialogflow CX has a per session charge. I know which one I'm going to be using. and it's the one that's free.
It's the one that starts AB.
Yeah. CX is clearly meant for more enterprise and call center like operations.
Interesting.
Rather than actions.
Yeah, no, I just found it surprising that there's been all these changes over there just in this few months. But what I figured out when I ran through the migration tool was that for the most part everything transferred okay. I did have, there's a number of entities and types that I have slots that have system.ini type. And part of that migration, Actions Builder created a new type for me, and then I figured out they could go into that and actually say, instead of saying this is going to be like a closed enum of values, I could select something called free text, which is basically gets me back to the anything that is in that spot gets surfaced. So that's fine, and I don't necessarily have any question with the migration tool. The problem that I have is that the way that I code is I have using the Jovo model. There's a way that you can specify what these different intents are in one format, and then have it build based on which platforms you have. It generates the files, but I'm not sure. I haven't been able to find anywhere what that format is. In some cases, it's just a kind of, if I'm specifying that I want this new Action Builder stuff, that I just need to figure out what the right format is to specify that I want this custom type, and now in Google Action, instead of Dialogflow, I want it to be a free text, but I don't know. I don't have any documentation on that. I don't know what to put there. So I'm kind of stuck, because really I'd like to have it go through the whole pipeline process that I already have.
Yeah.
Where I make that change in code, then I do a Jovo build, which generates these files. I can do a Jovo deploy, which then pushes them out to Actions Builder. I would love to have one less piece in the middle, instead of having, your assistant talk to Dialogflow, which talks to, or actually talks to Google Actions, which talks to Dialogflow, which talks to your webhook. I'd rather take out that, one more piece in the middle, but I just don't know how to start it on this side where I've got it in code, because that way then it's all checked in and version controlled and all that stuff.
No, right. Okay. So two pieces here again. I think one of the nice things about Actions Builder in general, and again, I don't know how this applies to Jovo specifically, is that you can use the Gactions tool to download all the configuration files and then re-upload them again. And now they've also added an API that lets you do the same thing. And I assume that's the API that Jovo is leveraging. But I don't know how to take those configuration files and get Jovo to look at them, or to import them into Jovo, or to have Jovo export to that format. I'm assuming there's a way. And again, there's a way to have that free text type, but I don't know what it is.
So that's interesting. So I could go into the migrated project that I have and have it set up the way that I want it to. And there's a way to export that.
Yeah.
Is that through Action Builder, or is that through Actions on Google Console?
It is actually through a command line tool called Gactions.
Okay. So there's nothing that I can do on the GUI right now. I did see something about installing Gactions, which I think it lets me have Jovo push the code out, so I don't have to do that manual upload of the intents.
That's interesting. So it could be that Jovo is using Gactions to push it out. It might also be that you can use Gactions. Gactions is also what's used both to upload and download that configuration file.
Okay.
So you may be able to use Gactions to download the file and then convince Jovo in some way to import it into your scheme. I would.
Or I could even see. Yeah, I can. Oh, definitely. So I'll go ahead and I'll try that. I'll see if I can figure out get Gactions installed, and see if I can figure out how to export the migrated project, and see if I can, figure out, this is what I need. So maybe play around with putting that same configuration in my model JSON my file for Jovo and see if it generates those same files
Yeah,
or not.
here's the big downside is those files that get downloaded are YAML files, not JSON.
Oh, because I love YAML.
Because
Well,
everyone loves YAML. Yeah.
I'm using serverless and they love YAML too. So I'm kind of
stuck in both worlds. Yeah.
Yeah, in both worlds. JSON, XAML. It sure beats XML.
I don't know. We're going to have this debate another time, I think.
All right, that sounds good. All right, well, so the
other thing I want to caution anybody who's watching this, when you use the conversion tool, don't do the conversion in place, do the conversion to a new project.
Yes.
And only when you've got everything working, then you can convert your old project to Actions Builder and then upload your new configuration to it. So don't try to do it all at once because things will have issues.
Okay, no, that's good. That's definitely a good warning. I like the idea of moving it to pushing it to a separate project. I had seen that as an option, and I think they even mark it as recommended. And I'm like,
yeah, they mark it as recommended. Yeah,
I'm going to do that. So the last thing that I'm trying to do as part of this big push, besides a few little code tweaks and trying to get it into beta test, is that there's this thing with DynamoDB where behind the scenes, the reason why it's so efficient is that it works off of partitions. So each item that you add to DynamoDB, which is a NoSQL, it's not really a document database; it's an item database. Because even though you push items that are JSON, they're not necessarily documents. They could, but anyway, there's the idea that you could provision your DynamoDB to something like 40,000 capacity units, which is how DynamoDB measures things. And what that would do is that would give you the max number of partitions, which I think is 54 partitions, which means that that as you add things, then it gets hashed and it figures out which partition. And so it just is a way of distributing things. You can't necessarily control the number of partitions directly. You control it indirectly by specifying, this 40,000 value. But problem with 40,000 value is if you were just to turn on that for provisioning and keep it on so that you always had that amount of capacity available, even if you weren't using it, that's something
you're
like
being billed for a huge amount of capacity.
That's like $17,000 a month or some crazy thing. I don't know. Working with some very, very smart people from Amazon on the AWS side, that some of their suggestions on what to do. So I tried that over the weekend and ended up having an issue with, because my table has a couple of global secondary indexes and there's a limit on the number of sizes. But anyway, what you're supposed to be able to do is say, I want to set my provision at this certain thing. It goes through and it updates the table. It's faster if it's a blank table versus if there's stuff in it, because I guess then it has to refigure out what the partitions are for each of the items, right? But then once that is updated, you immediately flip it back to on-demand capacity, which means you only are charged for what's being used. But now things are configured so that you've got the max number of partitions. So that's what I've been trying to do. Not partly just trying to understand it. Not that I think this game is going to ever have 40,000 simultaneous users at any given second. That would be such a dream. But trying to understand, there's potential that there could be lots of users to it. And so I just was trying to understand what the ramifications were, or the process for doing that. But anyway, just keep hitting these little things that take up time. But
it's always interesting trying to figure out what the right method at any given moment is to figure out how much we want to prepare for scaling up. Because if we prepare too early, then we're putting in a lot of resources up front that aren't going to be used for a long time. On the other hand, if we wait too long, now we need to dedicate a lot more resources just to get things so that they're stable for a large number of people. Yeah. And that can be even more costly. So it's, like with everything as a programmer, it's balance. It's finding the right balance.
Yeah, so I think the problem that I have is that I think my account can only have like 80,000 capacity units at a time. And so because the table uses it and there's read and there's write, and I don't know if both of those count separately or individually, and then each of the global secondary indexes have a read and write capacity to them. What I might try next is just picking something like 10,000 instead of 40,000, and then at least I get some advantages, some additional partitions that would help me scale. But anyway, that's what I'm going to try next. But that was kind of a crash and burn, and started this since I had never done it before, and I wasn't sure how things were being charged. I was like, if I flip this, am I going to get billed? Am I?
How much should I just,
Yeah,
commit myself to here?
Yeah, so got some reassurances from some people from Amazon through Twitter that it really would only start billing me when things are updated, which seems to be the case. It took an hour to go through the process, even on an empty table, which was starting to freak me out, because I'm like I don't know if this is this really working. And it turns out that I got some failure messages, which might be part of the reason. So anyway, I'm going to try it again, probably with 10,000, and
I was going to say, when did you try doing this? Was this the Wednesday before Thanksgiving?
No. It's been, okay. It was over the weekend. Yeah. Yeah. No, that wouldn't have been a good day.
No, that was not a good day to try to get anything done on AWS.
All right. So I think I'm going to try a little bit with the Actions Builder, your idea, and see if I can figure that out in the short term, which may or may not convince me to go with Actions Builder from the get-go, or I may just end up releasing this with Dialogflow and then push it to next year to migrate to
like
Actions
I said,
Builder.
Again, this is again another one of those trade-offs. I think if you can get Jovo to generate the Actions Builder stuff the way you want it to, the way you need it to, that'll be the better. Switching to Actions Builder now will be the better route for you.
Okay. Well, I thank you for the advice. And if anybody else has experience using Jovo and Actions Builder, converting a project, migrating it from Dialogflow, I would love to hear some additional tips. And I've reached out to Jovo, and I'm sure they'll get back to me when they can with some answers too. They've always been good about that.
So again, if you've got tips, tricks, or just want to share what your achievements or frustrations have been developing for Voice over the past few weeks, reach out to us. We're always happy to hear and share. And if you've got questions, try to answer them.
That's great. Love to hear from you, and good luck on your Voice projects. And happy holiday seasons. We're Two Voice Devs.
Take care, everyone.